So what actually happened in court today? And by in court, I mean virtual court, because
Yes.
the judge actually has COVID.
Yeah, she does. So I was listening on the dial-in, the public dial-in, actually, which felt very interesting to listen to arguments that way. But both sides kind of presented their case. Obviously, they'd already submitted written elements to this. The judge took a little bit of time to review and think about things, and then issued a pretty quick verdict. She said, based on the evidence, based on the arguments that had been made, I feel that it makes sense to speed this up, not quite as fast as Twitter wanted. They were hoping to do a trial in September, but she still thought that, the longer this thing drags out, the more chance there is for damage to Twitter's business and brand. And as a result, she said we should do this in October versus the Musk team wanted to wait all the way till February.
Now, Professor Talley, you actually know the judge here and know her record well. I understand she's a seller-friendly judge, or at least has made seller-friendly decisions in the past. What can you tell us about her?
Yeah, I think she's largely right down the middle in terms of her predilections, but she's very good. She works harder than just about any judge I've ever met and is extremely smart. Now, the thing to remember is that the Delaware courts have seen a fair number of these cases in which buyers get cold feet and try to walk away, whether it's because of COVID, the financial crisis. So in many ways, this is the most recent chapter. And Chancellor McCormick actually had one of these cases that came up during COVID about a year ago, and she did hold for the seller, basically told the buyer, you know what, you're going to be required to go forward with this transaction, buy the company that you're now trying to walk away from. And I don't even care that your financing has fallen through, because you sort of made that happen. You sort of engineered or sabotaged your own deal. So during the argument today, there was a lot of argument from Twitter's lawyers about whether Elon Musk had similarly been trying to sabotage the deal. Now, we haven't gotten to any of those matters yet. The key question is whether this deal, this litigation was going to get fast-tracked or put on the slow track. And we're definitely on the fast track. While Twitter's lawyers didn't get exactly what they were hoping for, they ended up missing it by only about a couple of weeks. And she pushed what they had hoped to be a September trial into October. So largely, one would chalk this up to a victory, at least as of today, to Twitter.
So the question is how big a victory? I mean, you talk about precedent here, but was that other case a $44 billion deal? And did it involve taking on Elon Musk?
Unless there are cake decorating companies that are worth $44 billion, no, it wasn't. This was a small deal. It wasn't even a publicly traded company. And so there is a kind of an interesting question about whether when the stakes get ratcheted up like this, Chancellor McCormick is similarly going to be unsympathetic towards a buyer that wants to walk away. However, this particular deal, and everyone knew this because it was out there in the public domain, Elon Musk went after Twitter. They were a reluctant seller. They finally signed up the deal when he said, hey, I'll make this a really seller-friendly deal. I won't do any diligence on a bunch of these technical aspects. And only after the deal got signed up did he start to seem to have problems with bots. And I think a lot of people, including Twitter's lawyers, said, this is a pretext. This is essentially the beginning of an elaborate set of demands that was really intended to engineer an exit ramp for Elon Musk. So one of the key claims that he made was, oh, this bot problem is bigger than I thought it was going to be. But that was never really in the document itself. It was never in the agreement itself. It's sort of something that he injected into the picture. And I think one of the key questions that people were looking at today was whether the judge was going to be willing to take a long-term litigation approach, which would be kind of a signal that she might be more willing to listen to some of this bot count war. And instead, she's fast-tracked it. There's still going to be arguments about bots, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to be the sort of blown out thing that Elon Musk and his lawyers wanted.
Kurt, the professor makes a really good point. So much has happened. You almost forget that Twitter didn't want to do this deal in the first place. And now here we are. What are you hearing from your Twitter sources about what they are going to be doing over the next few weeks?
Yeah. Well, obviously, there's a lot of preparation that will go into this, but I think this, as Eric mentioned, this is a good win for Twitter because it shows that their argument is already being well received, right? Which I think was the big thing. I think they've already sort of won a little bit in the court of public opinion here. I don't know. I certainly on my Twitter feed, there was a lot of support for Twitter from their lawsuit. I've certainly seen employees seem to be happy with how the company has handled this. So I think at this point, it's about trying to remove a lot of the uncertainty, right? Because the company has been in this weird state for months where they say, hey, it's business as usual, but you can't imagine that, you're going to be putting a 6-month, 12-month product roadmap out the door when you have Elon Musk hovering there. So I think at this point, again, they want to do this as quick as possible so that they can get back to doing things like shipping products, doing things like, improving the business.
Indeed. Professor Talley, how do you think Elon Musk's larger-than-life personality, the fact that he has 100 million Twitter followers himself, I mean, there's a pretty, if we're talking about the court of public opinion, Elon Musk has a lot of fans. How do you think that will influence this trial?
Well, there's a sense in which it already has. One of the arguments that Twitter's lawyers made today was that you just can't leave this deal in limbo when it may just be thrown into utter chaos if we're going to be going into another year's worth of litigation. And that may be in part due to their arguments about the amount of damage that Elon Musk could potentially do here. Now, it's definitely true that there has long been this kind of question about whether Mr. Musk has some sort of, Elon exceptionalism that wouldn't make him bound to the same rules that apply to everyone else. This is an early shot across the bow that suggests that this judge in particular is willing to treat this case just like she would any other case. And when you've got a deal that has gotten signed up on very seller-friendly terms with very little due diligence in what seems like, at least at present, to be a bit of a drummed up reason to want to walk away, the Musk team probably has an uphill battle to climb here. I think there is a real sense as well that Delaware courts view this as kind of their look in the mirror moment. They are widely reputed to be, and they embrace this as the place where sort of grown-ups go to transact with one another. And if you put something down on paper and you promise it, they're going to hold you to it. And so on some level, yes, Elon Musk has a larger than life presence, but that also has a countervailing effect that the Delaware courts might have an opportunity to say, look, even for this person, we're going to hold him to his agreements.